Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 1564, written by Darkesnow, Black-Eyed Visitors at Dusk. I am hesitant to even write this, because words on paper make it seem real and I don't want it to be real. But it was, at least I believe it was. Many years ago, when I was a senior in high school, I was at home by myself, as both my parents were teachers, and it was a parents' night. I was in the kitchen, fixing myself a bite. It was about dusk, when I heard a knock at the front door. Now, this in of itself was odd, as this was a small town, and pretty much anyone who comes to our house knows to come to the carport, because the front door was rarely, if ever, used. I went to the door and opened it, leaving the glass storm door shut. Outside on my front porch stood two kids, a boy and a girl. For a second, I thought maybe someone had gotten their wires crossed and brought their kids to the teacher's house for parents' night, but that would be really strange. So I discounted the idea. I asked them, "Can I help you?" Then thinking that maybe they were selling candy bars or magazines or Girl Scout cookies or popcorn or any of the zillion billion things that kids come around shilling, the little girl said, "Can we come in? We need to use your phone." Now bear in mind, this was a small town. And at the time it would have been no big deal to let someone in, even a stranger, use the phone, particularly a child. I happened to have the cordless phone in my pocket, so I offered it to them, and the girl looked at me and said, "No, we need to come inside." I was about to let them when all of a sudden I got hit with the most incredible sick horror feeling in the pit of my stomach. All the hair raised on the back of my neck. And I had a total fight-or-flight response that I have no reasonable explanation for. I am always inclined to listen to these responses, but my hand was going to the door to open it anyway, and it was like I couldn't stop myself, despite the cold, sweaty palm terror I was stricken with. In the last second, I turned my hand from its path towards the latch, hit the light switch with my hand instead, and turned the porch light on. The porch light lit these kids up, and I swear, they had the blackest eyes I'd ever seen. Like they were wearing those black full sclera contact lenses. I let out a squeak and slammed the door shut, locked it behind me. The knocking started again almost immediately. I ran and locked all the other doors in the house and ran and hid in the dining room with my dog, who was growling like I'd never heard her growl before. Finally, the knocking stopped, and when it did, the feeling of terror lifted and the dog calmed down. When my parents got home, I told them about it, but they thought I must have been sleeping and had a nightmare. I did my best to put it out of my head and went on with my life. I had myself half convinced that it was a dream or something I'd imagined, despite the fact that I am not the kind of person who does that sort of thing. I am calm and rational and meet tales like these with questions and skepticism. So some sort of terror-driven paranoia, home alone imagining, was right out. It's also worth mentioning that I am completely sober and chemical-free at the time. A couple years ago, I heard someone talking about Becks, or black-eyed kids, and all the old memories came flooding back. I did some internet research and found that so many people have had similar experiences to mine, almost down to the letter, and the cold feeling of horror, terror, fear these kids emanate. I never open the door to anyone anymore without checking the peep, which is a safe thing to do anyways. I am sitting here at work in a full room of people, and when I think about this, and those kids and their eyes, I get cold chills that won't quit, because someday I'm afraid I'll meet them again, and I won't be able to stop myself from letting them in. Case file 1564, Black-Eyed Visitors at Dusk. Reports of Becks or black-eyed kids are rather intense and rather extensive, but these reports, most curiously, don't stretch back that far, more like the 1990s where they started to appear. It's a kind of modern myth or legend. But the most notable one was Brian Bethel, who was a journalist. Something I think was in a parking lot in Texas of a movie theater. He was approaching his car and then two kids came around and asked for a ride home. But then he was overcome with this intense fear and foreboding that he couldn't explain because it's just two kids. Of course, then when you see the black eyes, that's almost like looking into the abyss and it's looking back at you. You didn't intend to look there, but you are. So maybe these are just possession events, demons that are possessing kids and guiding them towards a certain event. It's like the vampire mythos where the vampire has to be invited in. I think there is a certain level of truth to that in general, to the cosmic nature of reality, where if you're evil and you're not asking for consent first from the victim, then there will be repercussions for you. But if you ask for consent and they accept you in, you're in the clear, even if you're evil. Something like that. Or the other option is that these are alien possessions, or maybe alien constructed bodies that aren't entirely accurate. It's like the uncanny effect in CGI, where you just know something is quite wrong, but you can't exactly pinpoint it, minus the eyes in this case, which are pure blackness, which is, if they're aliens, they need to get that fixed out, because that's a pretty obvious tell. Case file number 1565, written by Lingering Darkness. The Forgotten Espresso Machine. I was looking through old photos on my phone the other day. I noticed in one photo of a place I lived in around 8 years ago, there is an espresso coffee machine on the kitchen counter. Why is this odd? I have absolutely no recollection of ever owning a coffee machine. Everything else in the photo I remember owning, but not that machine. I literally have no memory of ever having a coffee machine. In the photo I can see my French press I always used until I did buy an espresso machine 2 years later. Why would I use a French press if I had an espresso machine? Indeed, why would I buy an espresso machine 2 years later if I already had one? And the one I bought, which I still have, looks nothing like the one in the photo. So I'm not simply mistaken as to when I bought it. I asked a couple mates who used to drop in for a cup and chat at the place I lived in 8 years ago, and neither of them can remember me having a coffee machine. Whenever they popped over, they remember me either offering them a French press coffee or a cup of tea. I drink a lot of coffee, so this is not something I would simply forget owning. I have a photo of an item no one, including myself, has any memory of me ever owning. I have no memory of me buying it, using it, taking it with me when I moved to another town, or disposing of it. I only remember using a French press until I bought a coffee machine 6 years ago. What's going on here? Case on file 1565. The Forgotten Espresso Machine. Hi, new universe. Here, there's an espresso machine. I guess you can't enjoy it because it happened before, but it is a telltale sign that you're in a new universe, in the grand ocean of the multiverse. You found one which had a weird espresso machine. Honestly, if I found concrete evidence of this, like in a picture of something that I know never happened, then I would go full Sherlock Holmes and try to determine all the pieces that aren't quite fitting correctly in this new universe. Of course, that's with my knowledge of the multiverse, which a lot of people don't have, and then they get ported to a new place that's a bit different, and they don't have this basis, the foundation of our knowledge to build on. For us, it'd be more of adventure, I guess you could say. It'd be like those games you played as a kid or a teenager where there are two images, and you have to find all the differences between them. Kind of fun, and I guess you could apply that, but to the whole universe. Everything that's different. Maybe if you find all the differences, you get a reward. Probably not, though. Now time for the quote of the day. War is a cowardly escape from the problems of peace. Thomas Mann. Yep, war is simple. Especially I think as men, we are geared for battle. We tend to simulate it if we can't have the real thing. In video games or LARPing, going to events where you're pretending to be a warrior and fighting other people, it's in our DNA to be combatants, to be fighters. Not just that, but it is part of us. If we're too cowardly to suppress that part of ourselves and go full on to embrace it in reality, where we might be built for something, but it doesn't mean it's good. War is hell. Truly. And sometimes maybe it's unavoidable, but that doesn't mean it's something that you should embrace. And yeah, oftentimes there's no need for war at all, but people are just not content with peace, because peace is unlimited potential. You don't know what's going to happen. In war, you have a gun, he has a gun, go at it. Or you have a sword, he has a sword, go at it. It's simple. It's raw. But peace is anything but simple. Ironically, peace is total chaos, but in the best way possible. It takes a lot of bravery to embrace it, but I think we'll get there. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.